SEO WTF, right? Well, fortunately, we at Salon SOS are going to shed some light on this very important topic. Let's start with the basics. What is search engine optimization? Well, a very simple way to look at it is this. It's the practice of optimizing your online presence so that your website ranks higher in search engines like Google. And since so many people turn to Google to find information, the higher your website is listed in the Google rankings, the more likely people will click on your website, learn about your business, and potentially reach out to try your services and become new customers. Right? So, for example, a consumer goes to Google and types in best hair salon, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Google is going to provide a list of website options. So SEO, or search engine optimization, is the work that you can do in the background to help Google consider putting your website closer to the top of that results list. Now, I need to be clear that this process takes time. It's not a quick fix where you adjust a couple of things and presto, you're ranked number one. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, but the reward of more visitors and new clients can also last a very long time. So we're definitely worth it. Now, let there be no mistake. The ranking of websites listed by Google anytime we make a search is not random. In fact, Google takes over 200 factors into consideration to carefully present what it determines is the best results based on the search that a consumer makes. So hope it's obvious why this is super important for any business to understand and to apply. I mean, believe it or not, there are over 3.5 billion, right? That's billion with a B, searches on Google every single day. The first suggestion listed by Google gets 32% of all the clicks. The second suggestion gets 18% of the clicks. So for those of you that are good at math, that means that 50% of all the clicks happen on the first or second website listed by Google. So think about it this way. If 100 people search for, in Google, hair extensions, West Vancouver, right? 100 searches means 50 of those people are going to click on the first or second result. If your website is not showing up, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to gain new potential clients that are looking for this service. So the really important question is, like, how does Google decide which websites to list in which order? And more importantly, what can we do about it? As I mentioned earlier, there are over 200 factors that Google takes into consideration, but I'm just going to highlight some of the key ones that you can focus on starting today. The very first step seems basic, but you'd be amazed at how many small businesses still don't have a website today, or they have a really old one that hasn't been updated in years. If you don't have a website, or it's impossible for Google to recommend you. We'd be happy to help get you started with a website or refresh your old one if needed. Just give us a call or send us a message. It's part of what we do. Okay, so let's think about this logically. If someone is looking for a salon in your area, why might you not be showing up? Right? Google wants to give consumers the best possible result based on the specific search they made. And so the problem is that Google is not going to find your salon unless you give Google enough information to find online about your salon. And at the same time, you're most likely not the only salon in your town or city, and you want your salon to perform better than the others, right? Clearly. So ultimately, you need to figure out what your potential customers are searching for, right, in Google, and then give this information to Google through your online activities. So let's get into some specifics. one of the basic places to start with is your Google My Business page. Now, this is actually soon changing to a Google Business Profile, but essentially it's the same thing. You can go in and just search Google My Business or Google Business Profile. Make sure that your profile, you've actually officially claimed it. In order to do that, you would have at one point received a letter in the mail from Google with a special code to make sure that you're the owner of the business. And you can optimize your profile in Google, right? Your actual Google My Business profile, and make sure that all of your information is up to date, that your proper website address is listed there, all of your phone numbers, email addresses, contact information. And we suggest that you put logos, pictures, hours of operation. This is obviously one place that Google goes to look, and it's completely free to have your information listed there. So very, very important. Now, beyond that, in terms of what Google is going to go and search for around the web, falls into three distinct categories. The first one is what we would consider technical considerations. And I don't want to go too deep into sort of techie world with you here, but just a couple of things to sort of understand that are important is your site speed and your page speed, right? You know how frustrated you get when you're trying to go on a website and it just takes so long to load? Well, the reality is a lot of people will just kind of abandon it and stop and just go and look for a different website. So Google will actually track and measure the speed of every single page on every single website, and it favors websites that are fast. So that's something that you want to be thinking about and checking with the website company that's managing your site for you. Second thing that's super critical in today's world, obviously, is that your website needs to be mobile optimized, right? That means that it's actually specifically designed and laid out in a mobile format, because more than 50% of all searches are now done through a mobile device, and that number is expected to just continue to rise. Okay, so you need to make sure that your site is mobile optimized. Thirdly, you need to make sure that your site is secure. Now, what does that mean? It's actually your domain name. So your www.salonxyz.com address needs to be secured. And typically before the www, when you look in the search bar, there's something you'll see that has like an HTTP. And what you really want is an HTTPS. That S is the critical factor that means that it's secured. If you're not sure, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to check this for you and just let you know if it's an issue or not on your particular site. Final technical consideration is just the age of your domain name. Like, how long have you had your www address out there for Google to be able to get information about you? Right? If you just launched your website last week, it's obviously difficult to expect that Google is going to rank you #1 because there's no history there. Whereas if you have, had that website in existence for many years, there's more history, there's more data for Google to be able to use and kind of trust that you're actually a legitimate business that has been around for a while, and therefore Google will be more comfortable sort of pointing consumers in your direction to go to your website, right, by ranking you higher. Okay, so those are some key technical considerations. Now we're going to get to one of the juicy parts, which is what is called the on-page considerations. And that means all of the items that are kind of contained inside of your website that are fully within your control. Okay, and the very first and most important is called keywords. You may have heard about keywords in the past. These are the actual words that a consumer would enter into the search bar in Google, right? So we talked about a couple of examples. Best hair salon, Grand Rapids could be a keyword. Hair extensions, Brooklyn could be another keyword. Hair stylist, Minneapolis would be another example of a keyword, right? So there could be just many of these. And what's important for you is to try to understand what are the keywords that you feel that your potential clients are most likely to be using, and what do you want to be found for, right? Do you specialize in hair extensions? Do you specialize in wedding hair? certain services that you want to make sure that are factored in. So determining those keywords is the important first step. Then you want to include them everywhere within your website consistently. Okay. Now the keywords have to appear organically and sound natural. You can't just kind of like plug words anywhere and everywhere on your website. You want to include them in text in sort of a natural, free-flowing sentence. But the more that you have that information as part of the text on your website, the more that Google is able to pick it out and therefore recognize it and match it up with searches that are being made. So here are some key places that you can include keywords inside of your website. The first and foremost is blogs. You've probably heard a lot about blogs. You might, read blogs on other websites. Blogs are so underutilized in the hair salon space, it's ridiculous. And it's actually a great place to be able to talk about hair tips and advice. We always talk about doing tutorial videos and whatnot, but actually having written blogs on your website with hair tips and tutorials is an amazing place for you to be able to put a whole bunch of different keywords that are related to hair and your salon. And that just makes it very, very free-flowing and natural for consumers to kind of go there and read. So blogs is very, very critical. We highly recommend that you get a blog going on your website and start updating it regularly with information. Other places on your website where you can include your keywords would include your sort of about section, right? You should sort of have a paragraph that talks about, the philosophy of your salon and include some of the keywords in there, right? Again, thinking about location. Keywords should always have a location attached to it because most people are searching for hair salon, and then they're going to plug in the name of the town or the city. So you want to make sure that that's written on your website, very often as well. Other places on your site is when you describe your services. If you have customer reviews that you post onto your own website, right? You feature some key reviews. You'd want to feature ones that are actually have those keywords in those reviews, right? If someone says, "Oh, Salon XYZ is the best salon in Toronto. I love going there every time. Pam takes such great care of me and gives me, a wonderful cut and color every time. The best experience ever." Perfect. But she mentioned in there key, cut, color, best salon in Toronto, a lot of those keywords. So if you can have those in your reviews, super valuable. Other places is the names of your images and videos on your website. So when you actually add a picture or a video on your website, you can actually give it a name. And way too often, the name is just like a number, right, from your camera or something, or it says IMG 22734. You could change that in the website and actually name that picture Balayage West Edmonton, right, as the name of your picture. And now that is written, again, another keyword that can be picked up and recognized by Google. So a very strategic thing that you can do is update the names and the descriptions of all the images and videos on your website. Other places you can do, and this is actually outside of your website, but utilizing these keywords is actually in your social media posts, right? So the captions that you're writing under your posts, it would be great for you to be considering using keywords. Now, you have to be very careful there again, because it has to be natural and free flowing. And social media posts are very, personal and caption, you're almost having a conversation with people. So you want to make sure that it doesn't sound too plugged. But if you can find ways to incorporate some of your keywords there as well, that would be very valuable. Okay, a couple of other areas on page within your website that are important is your title tags. Now, this is a little bit technical, but essentially every page on your website has a title. And this is done in the background. It's not something that you would see when visiting website, but it's kind of in the technical background when you create the site. And you want to make sure that your keywords are included in that title for each and every page of your website. Another place is called meta descriptions. Now, similarly to the title, this is a little mini description that's written in the background for every single page of your website. Okay. Consumers would not see this when they're on your site, but again, it's when you're creating the site in the background, you give each page a title and a description, and it kind of helps tell Google what the page is all about. So you need to make sure that those keywords are carefully included in those title tags and meta descriptions that you enter. We talked about the image tags, right? So naming the images and videos. And then finally, you just want to consider the user experience. This is a little bit more out of your control, but just think that if people click on your website page, but then they leave right away after a couple of seconds, that's a sign to Google that the content is not matching the search. And therefore, Google would be less likely to recommend that page in the future for a similar search. On the other end, if somebody spends a lot of time on your page, that tells Google that the information must be valuable, right? If they're spending a lot of time there, and that's going to boost your chances of getting recommended more into the future. So you want to make sure that the content on your site is interesting and keeps people there for a while. Another reason why blogs are so critical, because it typically increases the amount of time that people are on your website pages because they're reading through an article. Okay. So those are the on-page considerations inside of your website. Lastly, we're going to look at some of the off-page considerations. These are things that happen outside of your website. And the first and probably most important is something called backlinks. Backlinks are links to your website that exist on other websites out there, right? So think about a beauty magazine or a local news that did an article about beauty salons, and they featured your salon and included a link to your website in their article. That is a clear-cut sign to Google, right, that this third-party source thinks so highly of you that they're directing their viewers who are on their website to click a link to go to your website. Very, very powerful. So the more links that you can get set up on other websites that are directing people towards your website, the better. You can think about local business partnerships, right? If you have other local businesses that you could kind of self-promote each other, could be restaurants, could be clothing stores. Maybe you are a hair salon only, but there's a local spa or, massage, aesthetics, nail salon, and you could kind of collaborate with them to have a link on their website to your salon, and you can include a link to their website on your salon. Another thing that you might consider is a lot of the manufacturers, the product companies that you work with, very likely have a salon locator. And you would want to make sure that your website is listed on that salon locator so that people can click and go to your website. Again, any opportunity to get your website link on another site is a huge opportunity. Another off-page consideration outside of your website that's very, very important is reviews, right? Online reviews, you all know, you've heard it so many times, super, super important. You want to make sure that you have a strong list of reviews on Google itself, on your Google page, on your Facebook page, and on your Yelp page. These are the three most important review sites that you should be focusing on, and making sure that you have consistent, regular reviews coming in on those sites. We're going to be spending a lot of time on, articles. If you follow us on social media, we talk a lot about online reviews in our trainings. So critical, and there's really some great ways that you can be boosting this on a regular basis. Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about directories. Online directories. These are places that essentially just have listings of businesses. And you can think of Google Maps as one. You can think of Apple Maps, right, as another. You can think of Yellow Pages. You can think of Yelp. You can think of, quite honestly, there's tons and tons and tons out there. Better Business Bureau. Foursquare, local listings like you have Kijiji or Craigslist can also have opportunities. Yellow Pages, I think I mentioned. Anyways, do a search of different local business directories that might exist in your city, town, state or province, and make sure that you are at least listed there and that all of your proper contact information is up to date. What's critical is that you have identical information everywhere. That means either your street address, your postal code or zip code, your phone number, email address, and website are identical. If you have any mix-ups, it's going to create sort of a confusion for Google, not knowing if it's actually the same business or not, and therefore you're not going to be actually benefiting from that extra visibility. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. We wanted to just touch upon some of the key factors. Again, climbing those Google rankings takes time, right? It's an ongoing process. You can't just do all this in a month and get some links and put some keywords and think, okay, great, everything's going to be fine. It's an ongoing process because other businesses, other salons are constantly changing and evolving also, and that's going to influence the rankings. But I promise you that if you put in a little bit of energy and work into this on a consistent basis, it can have huge long-term benefits for you. Now, we obviously at Salon SOS, we do offer SEO services specifically for hair salons. If you want some help, you want a little bit of at least a free consultation or evaluation of where you're at, we'd be happy to provide you with sort of a top line report and also can help you with some actual tools that can do a much deeper dive and give you step-by-step actions specific to your business, your salon, that would really help you based on your actual current situation as well. So contact info coming up in the outro. Thanks so much for listening and get ready for more great tips on future episodes.